everyone, and welcome to today's episode. We're going to be talking about If All Else Sails by Emma St. Clair. So, this one is a contemporary romance, it's a rom com. It fits within the clean and wholesome romance category, and it's also a standalone story, although there are some characters from Emma's hockey series that do make a cameo appearance. So if you've read her hockey books, you'll catch up with a couple of familiar faces in this one. So why did I want to read this book? Well, I haven't read Emma St. Clair for quite a while. Years ago, when she was writing contemporary Christian romance, I read quite a few of her books, and then she moved into writing mainly clean and wholesome, and I was mainly reading Christian fiction and Christian romance. So I kind of lost touch with her. But I have a friend who always raves about how much she loves Emma's books and keeps telling me I need to get back into reading them. And I saw the cover for this one, which is adorable, and the sailing aspects of the stories. And I read the book description and thought, yes, I definitely want to read it. So here we are. And I'm very happy I did read it. So I'll add my usual disclaimer and thank the publisher who provided an advanced reader copy. And all the opinions that I express in this episode are completely my own. So let's talk about the book. If All Else Sails by Emma St. Clair is set in Virginia in the Chesapeake Bay area. It's a very, very pretty location. It's also summertime. And there are quite a few romance and rom-com tropes in this one. So it's an enemies to love story, which I quite like enemies to love and rom-coms. I think they're a very good pairing for a whole bunch of reasons. We also have the hero who is the brother's best friend. It's a sports romance. So the hero plays ice hockey. He's in the NHL, and he's based in Boston when the story opens. And we have the grumpy sunshine trope. So we have a grumpy injured hockey player hero, and our sunshine is our leading lady who is an elementary school nurse as well. And there's forced proximity, and she ends up caring for him and helping him overcome his injury. And it's a summer vacation romance, which is always fun. And we have the rom-com tropes that are based around all those false beliefs and misunderstandings that can create a lot of humor. So we have that in the story as well. So the first line of the story, it's a good one, and it's this. I am standing outside of what could best be described as a quaint little murder cottage, wondering if, instead of going on vacation with my brother, I'm about to die. So that really does set us up with in our leading lady's viewpoint. So we meet Josie at the very start of the story, and she's 26 years old. She's on summer vacation. She's a nurse at an elementary school, and she's supposed to be on vacation with her sports agent brother. And they try and do a summer vacation together, and it generally doesn't work and something goes wrong. So there's definitely something that's gone wrong this time, because she turns up at this cottage at the address he gave her, and she can't find him and he's not there. So she's basically can see this rundown cottage that there might be someone there, but she's not sure. Her overactive imagination has decided that there's probably a serial killer or someone heinous living in this house. So she doesn't necessarily want to walk up and knock on the front door, but she has a poke around and she discovers that there's a dock with a really nice sailing boat there. So it doesn't really add up to anything that makes sense to her. And she's also not a fan of athletes. There's a few reasons as to why professional athletes are people she prefer to avoid. And she's usually clear steer of her brother's friends, because obviously his clients are athletes, so he's friends with them as well. So that's where she is at the start of the story, trying to work out what to do and what exactly is going on and why her brother has sent her on this wild goose chase to this rundown cottage in the middle of nowhere. Anyway, let's introduce Wyatt. So he's in his early 30s. He's an NHL hockey sports star, and he's very famous. If he goes to the grocery store, he will get recognized by fans and have to deal with that. And he's also Josie's brother's best friend as well, and has been since her brother was at college. So he's injured, but it's quite a ridiculous injury he has. It wasn't caused by hockey, so that's he's quite grumpy about the way he got injured as well, which isn't helpful. And he's inherited his uncle's rundown waterfront cottage that really needs a lot of work. And it's also a place that has a lot of really good family memories for him. His uncle was a very important part of his life. So he, in this story, he's also grieving the loss of his uncle, who was very important to him as well. And Wyatt is an introvert. He really doesn't like people, particularly being around all the time. He'd much rather be by himself, doing his own thing. He loves sailing, obviously, with the boat that's out the back. And he used to spend a lot of time sailing with his uncle. And as I said, his manager is Josie's brother. And that is what brings these two together. So the meet cute, you've probably worked out, is happening at the cottage in chapter one. And it is laugh out loud hilarious. There's just no other words to describe it. It is really funny. It's unique. It's ridiculous, but in a ridiculous way that makes sense. And I think the best rom-coms do have that element of ridiculous, but you can really go along with what the characters are doing and the misunderstandings and the stuff that happens. It kind of makes sense and you can run with it and think, oh my goodness, that's just crazy. And I'm really glad that it's happening in a story and it's not happening to me in real life. And it was lots of fun. So Josie ends up in a tricky situation in the meet cute. And so her opinions of Wyatt were never great to begin with. And so we very much see the enemies to love aspect of the story playing out from the very first couple of pages because he does not endear himself to Josie with the way this meet cute goes. And you'll have to read it to know what I'm talking about because basically it reinforces all of Josie's ideas about who Wyatt is and why he hates her and why she doesn't like him. So anyway, so as you can imagine, this story has a lot of problems if you're starting from a meet cute like this. So Josie's brother is problem number one. He is interfering in the way that he's put them together. He needs Wyatt to get back on track, not just because he's a client, but he's also a friend. And he's really worried about him holding himself up in this cottage and basically ignoring people and not being cooperative and going to medical appointments, etc., etc. So he sends his sister to try and coerce him out of this bad place that he's in. And Josie would never have gone near Wyatt if she had have known what was going on. So she really does feel tricked by her brother into being in this situation. And she is a nurse, so she's not earning a lot of money as a school nurse, and her friends are off doing summer jobs. And so when her brother says to her, well, I'll pay you to stay with him and nurse him and get him to appointments, etc., that becomes an offer she can't refuse because of the money aspect of it. And she thinks that, well, I'll just have to grit my teeth and cope with being around Wyatt and etc., etc. So it's just, yeah, the beginning is just really fun and it just sets up this fabulous dynamic of misunderstandings and misconceptions about a whole bunch of stuff. And they both come from dysfunctional families for different reasons. Josie and her brother have a pretty interesting relationship, which is complicated because he really was the golden boy who could charm the birds out of the trees and do no wrong and pretty much sucked all of her parents' attention. And then Wyatt comes from a very dysfunctional family as well, and he's carrying a lot of emotional baggage from that situation. And Josie also has some trauma in the past that she's also carrying with her. So there's a few things they've got to deal with in the story. And he's injured and he's very much the grumpy male who's injured and frustrated and not very happy. And she is the sunshine nurse who is happy and vibrant and is trying to bring some light into the dark world that he's created around himself. And he possibly has mild depression in this story as well, because he's not in the best place mentally with being injured and not quite knowing how he's going to recover and what's going on with that as well. So we have Josie basically being paid to nurse Wyatt back to health, and neither of them are particularly happy about this situation for quite a few reasons. And there's a lot of issues in this story. They both have trust issues, again, for different reasons. And Josie doesn't trust athletes, doesn't trust her brother's friends. So being around Wyatt is, and in close proximity to him, is challenging for her. And Wyatt, because of his family and other things that have happened, as finds it hard to trust people as well. So we have that as a starting point. They also have, particularly Josie, a few wrong assumptions and misbeliefs going on. So that all unfolds in the story as they work out that who they think the other person is might not actually be true, and they might have to readjust their ideas, etc., etc. And the dysfunctional family is it plays an important role in the story, and it's parent-child relationships in terms of being dysfunctional, as well as sibling relationships, and how those things from the past can really affect the future and what's going on in the present, and how the adult child copes with life and manages their manages us. How can I put it? It's how it's hard for them to trust because of the things that have happened to them in the past, and then that baggage then carries along. And when you add in the lack of trust from things that have happened in the past, it all gets quite complicated. But it also is a very light story, and it's very hilarious in how complicated it is. So that's from having the complex family systems. So this one I would describe as clean and wholesome. It's low spice. So you see the attraction between the characters, and when they have physical contact, you can see that there's definitely sparks flying. And in a rom-com, you've always got these ridiculous little situations that go on, are just so fun to read. And the forced proximity in the cottage because she's caring for him, and then also when they're sailing, that puts their relationship under the microscope, and the attraction that they get to a point where they can't ignore and think, well, what's really going on here? Do I really hate him or dislike him, or do I like her? And all those questions come up that are a lot of fun to see play out in the story. And so there was so much to love about this one. It was just a really fun, light, happy summer beach read story. It was just a lovely break from real life when you go into these books and you can just forget about your worries and just enjoy journeying with the characters. And Josie, as I said, she has an issue with athletes because of something that's happened in the past, and she really has to get over that in the story. And she's struggling with her brother in the sense that he's manipulated her into caring for Wyatt. So there's issues she has to work through with that. And I loved how Wyatt was just so down to earth. He wasn't up himself at all. The whole fame aspect of being an NHL player just was something he disliked and tried to distance himself from. So he didn't buy into his own hype. And he was just a normal, ordinary guy with a pretty extraordinary career. And it was interesting seeing those aspects in the story. Now, this one doesn't have a lot of sport in it. So it's a sports romance, but we don't actually see him playing hockey. So if you're not a sports fan, you're not going to be watching any sports in this one. So I wouldn't not read it for that reason, because we have a hockey hero, but we don't actually have any hockey going on, but we do have sailing, which is a sport. So I guess that counts. And the rom-com enemies to love, how we go from the enemies to friends to more than friends. It was just lovely how that played out. And I really love the dynamics of the characters really discovering each other and learning and growing and being able to admit that they're wrong and that they haven't necessarily had the right perceptions about things, and working out why their emotional baggage is causing them issues, and all that sort of gets played out in the story, which is really fun. And the grumpy sunshine dynamic was so fun. It was really cool to see that play out. And what I liked about her was that Josie wasn't too sunshiny. Sometimes you can have grumpy sunshine where the sunshine character is just over the top, ridiculously sweet. But Josie is very balanced. And so they really do balance each other out, with him being grumpy because he's in pain and has the injury and all that kind of stuff, plus her being the nurse who cares for him. And it was just really cool. And the setting on Chesapeake Bay in Virginia was just gorgeous. And the sailing, I loved seeing them out on the water. That was just so fun. And there's just so much to love about this book. And my favorite book quote is this one. That's the thing with family. They're like a bunch of stubborn splinters. So Emma St. Clair's writing, you'll get a lot of these types of witty sentences in her stories, and lots of fun similes and metaphors to read. But this it does actually make sense, because they're actually removing splinters when this comes up in the story. So this particular one does, it is logical. And it very much sums up how the family relationships that Josie and Wyatt are dealing with. They're messy, they're complicated, they're not simple, and at the same time, they also need to come to a point of realizing that their perceptions may not be 100% accurate in terms of the way they perceive different situations, and that there's room for them to give each other grace and to work out what's really going on and what they really feel, et cetera, and unpack all that emotional baggage that they're carrying. So the impact on me with this book, it was a joy to read. It was laugh out loud funny. It was hilarious at times. Some of the rom-com story elements were just delightful. And I really liked how the way their relationship played out was very respectful. And they both had boundaries issues in terms of there were because they were having to process things in the past, they needed space at different times for different reasons. And I really liked how both Josie and Wyatt were prepared to give each other space to work out what needed to be worked out and to respect each other's emotional and physical boundaries in that way as well. It was just a really sweet, delightful romance. So, in summary, I would recommend If All Else Fails to readers who like the enemies to love, where we go from enemies to friends to more than friends. If you like the brother's best friend trope, if you like the grumpy guy and the sunshine girl mixing together and coming up with something nice in the middle. If you like the sports star hero who's injured and needs to recover from that. If you like sailing and the Chesapeake Bay setting in summer, you'll like this one. If you like clean and wholesome low spice romances, you'll like this one. And you'll like this one if you like the laugh out loud funny rom-coms where you read the book quickly because you keep turning the page to find out what happens next. And you end the book with a smile on your face thinking, ah, that was such a nice story. Thanks for joining me today. Does If All Else Fails sound like a book that you'd like to read? Have you read it? What did you think? You can let me know. If you're listening on the podcast, you can send me a text via a link in the show notes. If you're watching at YouTube, you can like the episode and leave a comment at YouTube. You can also email me via my website where I have a contact form, and that's at narelleatkins.com. Please subscribe if you've enjoyed listening to this episode at your favourite podcasting app or at YouTube so you won't miss an episode. Please share this episode with a friend who you think would enjoy reading Emma St. Clair's books and who likes reading clean and wholesome romances. Thanks for tuning in and see you next time.